Hello everyone, this is Tamer Drak here. Water-related hazards like floods and droughts are increasing because of the climate change. Well, let's say it's a climate crisis that we human caused. According to the State of Climate Services 2021 report of World Meteorological Organization, the water and climate crisis of our world is deepening. So today we will talk with our special guest, Dario Soto Abril, about climate crisis and water shortages. Dario Soto Abril is the Executive Secretary of Global Water Partnership.
Hi, Tamer. Hi, Tamer. Good afternoon, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Thank you very much. Same here. Well, thank you very much for accepting our invitation for this interview. When you look at the State of Climate Services report, what do you see?
Well, we see a concerning situation because, as the report tells us, there's an increase in the occurrences of droughts and floods around the world. This is also tied to the increasing temperatures worldwide, and we are very close to having a crisis in terms of water, access to water, and water availability.
Well, how is the world doing with water? I mean, when we look around, water is everywhere, in the sea, in the ocean, in the lakes, in the air. But as far as I know, we don't have enough water for humanity. How does it come?
Yes, that's true. And as you said, water is everywhere, and that in a way affects the way we appreciate water because we feel that there's plenty of water. The reality is that from the whole water that we have in the world, which is plenty, as you point out, only 0.5% is available, is fresh water, is water that we can consume. So you see that the reality is that we have a lot of water, but not all of it is for human consumption, no? And at the other hand, we have a population around the world that is growing, that is demanding more and more access to fresh water, to water resources, and that puts our water infrastructure and our water resources around the world under a lot of stress.
And when we look to the floods and droughts, every year we have more floods and we have more droughts. For example, in my country, in Turkey, this year we have a very strange and hard droughts in the Middle Anatolia, but also we have lots of droughts this year, and we lost too many people. We have really construction problems. So what do you think? Where are we going?
Well, the reality is that from the Global Water Partnership, which is celebrating this year 25 years, this is the core of the work that we do, and we've been working for all this time to support water security around the world. That means that there's enough water for human, for industry, for agriculture. And in terms of your question or your comments about droughts and floods, yes, there's a reality that with climate change, with increasing water in climate and temperatures increasing and growing, we're going to have more occurrences because there's more moisture in the atmosphere. There's more water that is evaporating, and that creates climatic events like severe climatic events like droughts and floods, which are more prevalent than in the past. So we're seeing that in the current year we have much more events that combined in the past 20 years. Or 2 decades ago. So you can see how pervasive this climate change is hitting us right now.
And we have another problem since 2019, COVID-19.
Yes.
And how does COVID-19 pandemic affected the world and the water consumption of the people?
Well, there's indeed a report that came out from the World Health Organization recently about this. And it has, I would say, two impacts. One, because of the COVID crisis, the water demand for hygiene has increased because the world overall has the hygiene habits, washing the hands, washing the floors, washing facilities have increased. People have become more conscious of the importance of cleanliness and using water for that. You see that more happening in, for example, the homes for the elderly, for the old people, where there's more cleaning being applied. More people are washing hands overall everywhere. So in a way that has increased the consumption or the need for water. On the other hand, COVID itself has brought up the fact that there's water scarcity and how it also creates inequality. To give you an example, recently there was a publication about schools in Colombia and South America where public students of public schools were not able to go back to school because the schools did not have access to water. So while private students of private schools, they could go back to school because their schools, their private schools, have access to water and sanitation. So it shows that COVID is putting out all these inequalities caused by the access or the lack of water and also the scarcity of it.
Climate crisis is a real problem for our world and for humanity, and also there's an inequality in everywhere in the world, especially on water consumption and water using, and we can say we have economical inequality and also gender inequality. Do we have gender inequality in using water?
Yes, we do, because women are most likely to be impacted, and that many studies talk about that, more impacted by lack of access to water than men. Women, for example, sometimes they are the head of households. They have to walk to procure the water and when the water sources are away. They also have to deal with the fact of household use of the water, providing for the family. So they're definitely much more impacted. The other thing that we see in this regard is that while women are more impacted by the lack of water, they're also least represented in water governance matters. So we see less women being represented in governance bodies, in the water ministries, in the water authorities, women not having equal representation in water discussions from different stakeholders. So it's a two-pronged problem. Again, them feeling women being more impacted by the lack of water, but also being more impacted by reduced access to the governance discussions.
And water is very crucial for us. Water is the most important thing maybe in the world for humanity. How can we solve this water problem so that everybody will have enough water and we will be sure about our future?
Well, from the Global Water Partnership, we have for all this time advocated, and we actually have the solution for the water problem. Is called integrated water resource management, which means simply that only by a holistic approach that brings together all sectors, the government, civil society, the industries, the agricultural sector, to agree on the concrete solutions and innovations that are needed for have a more equalitarian and also efficient access to use of water. That will be the only solution. I think there's also this crisis of water is also pushing us to be more innovative. So the work of innovators in terms of new technologies, new ideas, is also another way, good solution to bring into the table. What we are also cautious about is that the challenges that we face with water, and including the flooding and the droughts, are not going to be solved from a purely crisis response approach. If you see what happened in Germany, where recently in the summer there was a huge flooding and it cost more than $7 billion in economic damages, just going after the flood or after the crisis and do reconstruction and do crisis management is not going to be enough. So we need to have good prevention techniques, good prevention strategies, which go through integrated resource management, which go through involving the different sectors of society in building these solutions.
And how do you find the governments, all of the governments in the world, how is their performance about water?
Well, it's mixed, to be honest. We do have in the Sustainable Development Goals, there's a goal 6. There's the goal 6.5, and which relates to water, and the reports that we get from that is there's progress overall. In the last 4 years, there has been some progress, but if you're comparing that scale from 1 to 10, governments and the world in general were around 54% of progress in this, which means infrastructure, government decisions, response to water crisis, and others. So we are, I would say, we are progressing, but governments are not there yet. And there's also not unified front from the entire governments in the whole world about what to do. No, so many governments are more progressive, are taking more measures, are investing more in water solutions, whereas other governments, maybe for the lack of resources or maybe because they have other priorities, are not necessarily that invested and that focus on water.
Today, at the present situation, it's very clear that we don't have enough water for everyone, and you are trying to solve this problem. What happens when you fail, when we can't afford everyone, when we can't help everyone to get their water?
Well, first of all, I'm hopeful that we can come up with a solution. I think we're seeing more and more the interest of communities to come together and again to have this integrated approach involving all stakeholders to find solutions. So I'm more positive or optimistic rather on what it would happen. I would say that the price of not solving it is going to be high. First, you see that from the supply side, because of water, the climate and the increase, the climate increase or the increase in temperatures, to 2.2 degrees more in the next 100 years. That will mean that more water is going to be evaporated. We're going to have less water available for us to use. And from the demand, we're going to have more people in the world demanding for more water, but we're going to also have more people in the world demanding for more food, and food to be grown requires water. And the industry will have to produce more to satisfy the need of the population. So we'll have industries demanding more water. So I think that creates in itself an urgency to act. And I'm very confident that if we work through the Global Water Partnership and through this integrated water resource approach, we can find a solution. But there's still a long way to get there.
Global Water Partnership Executive Secretary Dario Soto Abril, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
And also, thank you very much for watching us. You can support us through patreon.com, Medyascope TV, or you can support us through YouTube join button.
Türkiye'nin sivil, bağımsız, özgür ve çoğulcu bir medya ortamına ihtiyacı var. Medyascope, 20 Ağustos 2015'te bu ihtiyacı karşılamak üzere yola çıktı. Ama yolumuz uzun. Bu yolculukta bize Patreon veya YouTube'un katıl butonu üzerinden katkıda bulunabilirsiniz. Destek verin, sizinle güçlenelim.